Tamal Krishna Goswami Namaste Prabhupada, Sarva Vaishnava Devaswami, Radha-Damodara Traveling Sankirtan Party. Dear Srila Prabhupada, please accept my humble obeisances at the best of your workers, divine workers. All glories to you, divine workers, and all glories to the old Name Master, to the Guru Srila Prabhupada. On this sacred occasion of the 80th Vyasa Puja, my heart overflows with gratitude and awe. Although you are physically apart from our vision, your presence remains an unshakable pillar in our hearts. You live your life as the personification of absolute surrender to Srila Prabhupada's mission. Yet alongside that determination, you pour immense love and personal care into your spiritual family. I am forever thankful for your foresight in guiding me toward a stable and dedicated Vyasa. I am humbly grateful to Sri Gauranitai and to you for blessing me with a wonderful wife Kaduna. Together we are trying our best to raise our children, Krishna, Anand, Shamdara, and Krishna, in the shelter of your legacy. My memories of you during the Fiji Yatras remain so fresh. I vividly recall you visiting the Lotoka Ashram and bringing life into our behind-the-scenes services, reminding us of the importance of our work. I will always cherish those joyful family picnics where you would enthusiastically engage us in soccer. Sometimes I would rolling the referee just to favor the rivals. You brought so much laughter and warmth to everyone present. Your push for perfection extended to everything we did. During the city Harinams, I remember how you stopped us to personally show us how to synchronize our movements, wanting even our steps in the street to be a beautiful offering to the Lord. I also deeply cherish our intimate talks and witnessing your masterful dedication in the bringing of Jagannath and Natakam to life, which completely captivated our hearts and deepened our attachment to Lord Jagannath. On this milestone of your 80th year, we pray for perfection of your absolute dedication, precision, and humility. Please cleanse our hearts of all material contamination, strengthen our commitment to your instructions, and bless us to serve your legacy without duplicity, seeking the shelter of continual grace, your humble servants. Shall we dare repeat?
Thank you very much. Thank you for not uploading. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Anyone else? And after we do a quick reading. Hare Krishna, Shri Ki. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vasaya Bhutale Shrimate Tamal Krishna Goswami Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vasaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Namaste Saraswate Gauranga Shami. Nirvishesha Srinivadi Krishnacharis Dharane. So Srila Gurudev is a bona fide representative spiritual master coming in the line of disciplic succession all the way back from Krishna himself, down through the founder of Acharya, Srila Prabhupada, one of the pioneers helping Srila Prabhupada spread Christian consciousness far and wide all around the world, establishing the Christian consciousness movement. He did very important preaching work in different countries, assisting Prabhupada in spreading the movement in America, Fiji, Australia, Philippines, Taiwan, China, New Zealand, any other countries? India? Yes. So it says in the scriptures, Palena Parichate, that you can judge a tree by its fruits. So the mango tree is considered the greatest tree because it produces the king of all fruits. So Srila Gurudev is like that tree because he produced so many wonderful fruits. The fruits in the form of his wonderful service rendered to ISKCON, so many temples that he opened, so many devotees that he made, so many books that he was in charge of distributing, encouraging the devotees to distribute all around the world. So Srila Prabhupada said, you can judge a devotee by how many temples he opens, how many devotees he makes, and how many books he distributes. So Srila Gurudev was a great acharya in that line of distributing these fruits for the benefit of the whole world, and also having so many wonderful fruits of wonderful qualities, Krishna conscious qualities themselves. So in the Bhagavad Gita, of course, the famous verse, Tadvidi Pranipatena, Krishna said, just try to learn the truth by approaching your bona fide spiritual master. Pali Prashnena, inquire from him submissively, Sevaya, and render service unto him. Pali Prashnena Sevaya. Tadvidi Pranipatena, Pali Prashnena Sevaya, Upadekshanti Te Gyanam, Gyananas Tadpadashana. If we inquire from the spiritual master, approach the spiritual master, inquire from him, render service unto him, the self-realized soul, being satisfied by our mood and service and inquiries, can reveal the truth to us. So this was the experience of a lot of disciples, that Srila Gurudev was very approachable when we wanted to approach him as a bona fide spiritual master, to take shelter in Krishna consciousness and get guidance from him and make relevant inquiries. He was always there, he was always the expert person, empowered personality to take shelter and answer all our inquiries, and he always engaged us very nicely according to our psychophysical makeup in service to Krishna. And everyone in the material world, basically, like Srila Prabhupada says, from the greatest Lord Brahma down to the insignificant ant, is suffering, is in misery, but everyone is looking for happiness. So the bona fide spiritual master, he's that personality who can give us the real shelter under the lotus feet of Krishna and give us that real happiness, that real satisfaction. So Bhagavatam says, Tasmat Vajeta, Jigyashara Shre Uttama, that therefore any person who desires real happiness should search out a bona fide spiritual master and take shelter of him by initiation. The qualification of a bona fide spiritual master is that he has realized the scriptures by deliberation and is able to convince others of such conclusions. So Srila Gurudev was such a personality who we could, those who are serious about Krishna consciousness, we could take shelter of him and take initiation and take guidance of him, how to progress in Krishna consciousness. And because he was so realized in the conclusions of the Shastra, he was able to give those conclusions and realizations to his followers and disciples. So Srila Gurudev is one of the great pillars of ISKCON, like the captain of the ship to take us over this difficult ocean of Kali. The Bhagavatam 12 says, Kalo Doshe Nithera Jan Astaheka Mahadgana Kirtanare Krishna Shamukta Sangha Paramajya. This age of Kali is an ocean of faults. There's one great quality. Simply by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, one can become perfect, fully Krishna conscious and promoted to the spiritual world. So Srila Gurudev is like the expert captain of the ship. The Bhagavatam also says this, that this human form of life is like a valuable ship to cross over the ocean of material miseries. And the spiritual master, like Srila Gurudev, is like the expert captain to guide that ship back to Godhead. And the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, like the favorable winds to guide the boat on its journey back home, back to Godhead. So we see that Srila Gurudev testifying out in our own experience, the disciples here and his followers and many people who got to meet him and become enlightened in Krishna consciousness. He was definitely empowered by Srila Prabhupada and Krishna and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to attract thousands and thousands of people to Krishna consciousness and to touch their hearts and to inspire them to actively take up Krishna consciousness and service in the preaching mission. And anyone who knew Srila Gurudev, like my experience was whenever I saw him, like different places in India, I saw him here, Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, Fiji, Singapore, Hong Kong, different places. I travelled with Gurudev. He was always fully Krishna conscious. He never wasted a moment. He was always, his whole day was engaged in Krishna conscious activities and always preaching and always enlightening the devotees. And he had a great taste for the different facets of Krishna consciousness. We could see that he always had a great taste for kirtan, hearing the pastimes of the Lord and discussing the philosophy of Krishna consciousness and relising prasadam amongst his godbrothers and disciples. And I remember in Fiji, he was like his, he became just like your friend. In other places he was like heavy guru. In Fiji, he was just like one of the boys. And he'd sit you down next to him in the temple, Prasadam hall, like in the Toka temple, and say, give Rupa Raghunath more of this, more of that, what would you like more? And he'd say, come and swim with me on the beach, and be having picnics with him and hot jalebis and different dishes. So he had a special mood in Fiji. Of course, we understood that we couldn't take advantage of that friendly mood. We always had to be in the mood of being a submissive disciple, and Gurudev would always pull us up from time to time as disciples and chastise us even for very small things. Like, I remember in Vrindavan serving out prasad in his house there, and even if you were serving the chutney, you overlapped a little bit onto the sabji, he would chastise you very heavily. So he always woke you up to your senses and to be very, with that heaviness, it trained us up very nicely how to be very strict in Krishna consciousness and be very careful and diligent in our service. So Srila Gurudev is still here, as we know. He reasons ill that Vaishnavas die, while thou still art living and sound. The Vaishnavas die to live, and while living try to spread the holy name around, from Bhaktivedanta core. So his Vapu form obviously has gone, but his Vani, which is his most important form, the instruction of Srila Gurudev, is still here. Form of his many books that he's written, many thousands of lectures, he's in the hearts of his followers, in the temples that he instigated and opened and enthused devotees to maintain. So there's so many ways in which we can still, in his pictures, videos, so many videos as well, so many ways in which we can have a direct association of Srila Gurudev still. Of course, it's a great loss to lose the physical presence of the spiritual master, but one has to always feel the presence of Srila Gurudev in our hearts, in our service, that he's always guiding us, he's always trying to correct us, and we need to fully connect with him continuously in these different body forms. It's a very special day today. Of course, a very big festival in Fiji. A lot of us, or some of us couldn't make it, but still we're here, and it's nice to see a nice turnout. Thank you for coming and to listen to the glories of Srila Gurudev. And of course, it's very dear to Prabhupada. Like Prabhupada's right-hand man, and he personally served Srila Prabhupada in Prabhupada's last days. Prabhupada's personal servant and secretary. You can read TKG's diary, very intimate service and association with Srila Prabhupada in his final days. So please, we encourage you, not just disciples, but followers and those who are new to Krishna consciousness, who are very keen to find out more and get the shelter of Srila Gurudev. Please pray to him, try and assist his devotees in performing their service in Krishna consciousness, read his books, watch his videos, listen to his lectures, and that way you'll have his association continuously. Jai, Srila Gurudev.
Jai. Just following the rise with the strict discipline, doesn't tolerate mistakes. He's always a teacher. Wherever he goes. First part of our reading. We hear how the six loving dealings between the devotees as described in the Upadeshamrita, that we invite devotees into our homes, we accept such invitations, we exchange gifts, and we take prasadam together. Although Goswami Maharaj was very senior in every respect, this is from his stepbrother, both by years in Krishna consciousness, by service in Krishna consciousness to Prabhupada and to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Radha and Krishna, and also by realization, senior to many of us, most of us. Nevertheless, he demonstrated these principles of loving exchanges. He would initiate the process, very, very important. Although he was the senior, he would call the junior to come and associate. Generally, we think the junior requesting the senior for that association, but his humility was such, and his eagerness, his greed for association was such, that he would be the one to extend the invitation to the junior. At least I know many instances, but I know in my case was particularly true because he was many years my senior. He achieved more service results than I can achieve in this lifetime. This brother speaking is also initiating spiritual masters and masters. Still active now. I will review his name after everything. He achieved more results, service results than I can achieve in this lifetime. And many lifetimes together, as far as his realizations were concerned. They are like years ahead of me, but he would always request me to come and associate. It was a little embarrassing, but he was so insistent that on his request and out of his deep love and affection, there was nothing I could do but accept. For those who haven't met Srila Gurudev, it is a bit hard for you to relate to this, but for those who met Srila Gurudev and know him in person, you can understand. I wanted to accept it, but it was always quite a little embarrassing. How he was extending himself so many times, in so many ways, even requested me one time to join him through the rest of his life. So Goswami Maharaj asked me on several occasions. In my tribute to him, I mentioned one occasion, actually many occasions, he asked me to join him and just be with him, be a team together. Although he was a very powerful personality, he realized the principle of devotional service, especially as it is enunciated by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that the Yuga Dharma of chanting the holy names of Krishna is meant to be done in a congregation of Vaishnavas. It should not be done by chanting alone. This is demonstrated by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is his order, actually. Lord Chaitanya's order. So Goswami Maharaj is very powerful, but he realized, he understood very deeply, perhaps more than anyone I know, the value of devotee association. Although he was senior in advancement and realizations in so many ways, his humility actually was, some people actually misunderstood, because he was such a strong personality. You could hardly see Gurudev being, the personal humility, it's like, because he's very heavy and very, very strict. That his humility, his realization was there, that he very much depended upon the association of the devotees. So he asked me on a number of occasions to join him. And he said, we will travel together. He will give the lectures, and I'll do the kirtans. Gurudev is very good. Many times he presented that formula. And it is obviously my lack of realization, sincerity, neophyteness, that I didn't accept the invitation. But it was hard Because Goswami Maharaj was very heavy and he had this expert ability of being able to see your personality and appreciate you as a devotee. But he could very easily see the weaknesses and he would speak up. He's very, very sharp. He could immediately sense and spot, even you unknowingly you believe it's a mistake. Buddha can spot it, even you didn't know it. Therefore, it was quite uncomfortable for devotees sometimes who were not interested in really making advancement. Because sadhu means one who cuts, and cutting is generally painful. He would very often just point out very directly one's fault, or one's weakness, or one's mistake, and make one feel very uncomfortable. And you all know this was his mercy actually. As it said in Maharaj. Taking prasadam with him, as Prabhupada said, sometimes almost unbearable, because he would just grill the servant to the ground, not having enough salt, not cooking it, or not serving it properly. And it was uncomfortable. But actually he was acting as the real sadhu. Sadhu is not sentimental, as time is short. So we have to cut this attachment and awaken our love for Krishna. So he didn't wait for a particular moment to take one to the side, especially with those who were acting as his servants or disciples or even his friends. He would just immediately say, this is where you are at, and you made this mistake. You all can do it, don't you know it, and it should be corrected. And it was difficult, but he could do it because the saying goes, some people can give it, but they can't take it. They can dish it out, but they can't accept it. But he was not that guy. He was actually trained by Prabhupada. And he told me one time that how heavy Srila Prabhupada was with him. Very heavy. Prabhupada was very heavy with him. But those intimate servants, Prabhupada would also hold nothing back. It is an expression of love actually. Sometimes it says that when the Guru chastises the disciple, it is love, it is mercy actually. So Prabhupada said, my Guru Maharaj was always chopping. Some disciples were complaining. And Prabhupada said to this Guru Maharaj, he was more chastising us, Prabhupada said, referring to Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, than blessing us. But that chastisement was a form of blessing. So Goswami Maharaj could dish it out because he experienced it himself with Srila Prabhupada, who could sometimes be hard like a thunderbolt and soft like a rose. Sometimes devotees, perhaps out of their poor fund of knowledge or sentiment, they would just think that Prabhupada are always smiling and very sweet and loving with his disciples, but his love was demonstrated quite often in his thunderbolt nature. That's Srila Prabhupada. He would not tolerate so much Srila Prabhupada. Sometimes Prabhupada would become so angry, his lips would tremble. He would be very angry with a devotee because our mistakes, they are obstacles to our rendering true devotional service to Guru and Krishna. Very important. And we hang on to that. It is a sign of our nonsense. So sometimes these obstacles, these materialistic tendencies, these material desires, they have to be dealt with very strongly. And if a guru does not become strong with his disciple, he is doing what? He's doing a disservice. You understand what spiritual master is? Religious science. spiritual master is sweet. Chastisement of the Guru is coming from Krishna. Krishna's love. So Goswami Maharaj could dish it out because he took it. And Prabhupada, for example, the duty of the spiritual master is to train the disciple in humility, which is a fundamental principle of Krishna consciousness. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada once said that we should wear as a garland around our mind the Trinadapismi chain of words of Lord Chaitanya and Sixasha and prayer. That one should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street, more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others, expecting no respect for ourselves. This is the essence of our discipleship. We have to approach the spiritual master with a blade of grass in our mouth, like Srila Sanatana Goswami did with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, demonstrating the mood of a disciple with absolutely no pinch of pride. If we have any pride in our heart, that we think special, we know anything, then how can our spiritual master fill our hearts with the Vijnana? If our hearts is full of transcendental knowledge. So both in practice and realization, we have to be extremely humble. But this is not so much our nature, because we have been playing the role of master, or trying to play the role of master, the enjoyer, birth after birth. So sometimes the Lord, sometimes the spiritual master, and sometimes the God brothers, they have to smash the pride of the devotee, the disciple, or the friend. They have to smash their pride. Sometimes it is the only way, because this conditioning is very, very strong. To train Goswami Maharaj, sometimes Prabhupada was like that with him, so that the disciple does not think that he has done anything in his own accord, yes? That he is making spiritual advancement by his own effort. But everything is accomplished by the soul mercy of Guru and Krishna. Prabhupada would demonstrate. Sometimes he was often glorified. He would always bow his head out of humility, Srila Prabhupada, and give the credit to Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Although we know as our spiritual master, by Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur's mercy, Srila Prabhupada achieved so much. But still Prabhupada doesn't take the credit. So we continue the reading after the kirtan, and then we'll ask for another homage. So okay, just short kirtan. You want to read the whole lot? No, you will yeah, after I finish the reading, I will review it. Yes. Not too much. Shri Gurudev ki Jai, Shri Prabhupada ki Jai.